Wonderful. So we are live. So we are on episode 2 with Terry, and we are going to be talking about customer experience, the new battleground for digital transformation. We have Terry here for episode 2. So go ahead and take it away, Terry.
Thank you, Keisha. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. It's very sunny and beautiful in Seattle.
Oh, good. It's freezing here. But I am really thankful I have the opportunity to talk to everyone today about customer experience and that it truly really is the new battleground in digital transformation. And in this session, we're going to talk about bridging the gap between companies and their customers. In fact, Tiffany Vance, the vice president of Gartner, and she's a senior research analyst in customer experience, says that CX is the last source of sustainable differentiation and the new competitive battleground. That really is very, very powerful for companies to know and to understand because they are having to compete pretty much on a level ground because there is this massive gap between them and their customers right now. And why is that? Why is there a gap? The gap is because customer expectations have changed so dramatically and companies are not keeping up with the changes. Kind of like next door, you don't need to keep up with the changes. Well, unfortunately here they do. And actually to leapfrog the competition, they truly need to be able to surpass them with a differentiating factor of who they are. I'm going to give you a story about a company, and there was a massive disconnect between them and their customers. And they were not hearing what their customers needed, and they were an indirect customer. And it was a roofing contracting company, and their pain points of their indirect contractors were that they were not being met with their needs immediately. There was no one-call resolve. It was taking 3 and 4 phone calls to get an issue resolved. There were very difficult warranty coverage issues for them. The list of pain points for their indirect contractors continued to go on to where they saw a drop in one quarter of about 9% in sales. Considering they were on the upward movement on revenue, that was a large drop in sales for a $2.6 billion company. So what they had to do is they really had to begin thinking about how they were going to do that, bridging the gap. They realized that their product was a commodity, that one shingle is another shingle is another shingle is another shingle, and that their competitors are in it to win it as well, that they're out there trying to differentiate themselves. They're out there trying to win those same contractors over. They're out there trying to do different things with, the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's. So they had to determine that they had to be unique in the way that they bridged the gap, but they were determined to do that. They wanted to connect with their customer, but how were they going to do that? By differentiating, in which they were very successful in doing, by implementing a new solution, which met the needs of the contractor, made it very seamless. Self-portal, chatbots, IVR, where some voice recognition could answer their questions. So it really bridged that. Here, this is another company who learned to differentiate themselves. This is Tom, the founder of Blendtec. And Blendtec was actually recently written about in a book by Altimere's CEO, who is a market research and customer experience research firm. And he has written numerous books, and he said what brands have differentiated and made their brand noticeable and visible and relevant. Not delighting the customers, but relevant into their day-to-day lives. And Tom came up with Will It Blend It? And Blendtec blenders are known to blend anything. In fact, if you go on YouTube, you can put Blendtec, Will You Blend It? And there's probably thousands of videos on there of everything being thrown into a blend tech. But he did it that it actually blended an iPhone. So the power of this was that he really started, his personality differentiated them. Vitamix didn't have a chance against them. No other high-end blender really stood out. Blendtec was no longer a commodity. So much so that they impressed large corporations like Planet Smoothie. But Tom had decided he never wanted to go international until he caught the eye and impressed a company by the name of Starbucks so much. And they said, we want to use your blender because your blender is the best. Not only have you proven it, but we've done tests. And so Tom caught their attention by showing how powerful the blender was, differentiated, no longer a commodity. And he won the Starbucks business, and his company is now global. He didn't run in the same direction. Oops, I'm sorry, I duplicated my slide. Sorry. He didn't run in the same direction. What did he do? He connected. He connected with the customer on a really intimate level. He spoke to those customers. The consumer sales went up by almost 30%, which they had not. Costco is now carrying them. They buy it in pallets. So Tom really reached not only the consumer buyer, but also the buyers of those large international companies. It is important for companies today to actually connect. They need to reconnect, reimagine, and be relevant. And when they do that, they will gain the repeat purchases from these customers. They need to try and experiment. Companies today need to show that by this increased loyalty opportunity for them, by the CX improvements that they gain, it will drive this top line revenue. Blendtec was a great example of that. So was the roofing company. Their sales recovered from the 9% dip to finishing the year out at a 23% growth within those contractors within the program. And how they were able to do it is they believed what John Wooden says here. Failure isn't fatal, but failure to change might be. And think about the companies who failed to change. Blockbuster, when Netflix entered the market. The world of yellow cabs had to get creative when Uber entered the market. How did hotels start to differentiate when Airbnb no longer carried an inventory, but a website, and their profitability was exorbitant? Tesla, when it entered the market, made automotive, the people who've been around since the 1800s and Henry Ford, really rethink the connected car and started listening to what the consumers were saying. These are disruptors, but within the disruption, it gave these companies the opportunity to differentiate themselves from the competition. That is critical in bridging that gap, because then when you do, you're getting the information from your customers. And that's what your engagement needs to be about. Your customers if you listen to your customers, they will tell you what you want to know. They will share with you their pain points. You just need to listen. Now, if we go back and look at people who have been, or companies that have been in the market, but are causing their own disruption with the disruptors, is Netflix is definitely a disruptor. But Amazon has come along now and really shown a new avenue with Amazon Prime. So has Hulu. with the availability of that. Netflix now does not own that single marketplace, so they've continued to differentiate with original series. And now Amazon is doing the same. Tesla showed what a connected car was really like. But the automobile makers like GM and Ford and Honda, Toyota, they've also learned from Tesla's mistakes. And they have taken advantage of that and heard from the customers and listened to the customers, because Tesla reaches a small market who can afford them. Yet the cars that GM and Ford and Toyota make reaches the masses, and they were refusing to fail and move forward and actually be able to touch a larger market share, gaining a larger share of wallet, gaining a larger share and the mind share of all the consumers and customers for automobiles. So the key takeaway here is to understand that you need to move off of the traditional experience strategies of solving a need, but building that relationship and understanding the pain point of your customers. You need to have the behavior data from the customers in order to recognize that. And you need to also be dynamic and real time and continuously agile, evolving to meet the changing needs of your customer. When you do those things and you connect with them on a one-to-one basis, that's when you're going to start seeing the game-changing results. And that's when true transformation takes place. So thank you, Keisha, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. That was a fantastic presentation. I just have a couple questions for you really quick here. So you talked a lot about when a kind of a new player company comes into the market and there's disruption and what that means for differentiation. So for the partners who are going to consume this on demand later, what best advice as an industry expert do you have around what will be your top 2 or 3 tips for partners who are trying to disrupt a new market?
You know, that's a great, interesting question. And they need to do it and consider it, because our market is, we're all commoditized to an extent, you know, to a degree as well. So like you said, how do we differentiate as partners? You find your niche. You know, even if you're a system integrator, you have niches. Take advantage of them. Tap your employees. If you really want to know what your customers are thinking, ask your employees. Let them be creative. Give them an opportunity to take a day every other week or once a month and think of all new ideas. Give them space. Let them research based on what your skill sets are, and allow them to find the new opportunities for you and empower them to do so. And you'll find that there's going to be a new niche market, a new opportunity to grow that hasn't been exposed yet. For example, in manufacturing, there's so many micro verticals that can be touched. Healthcare, numerous micro verticals that you could be the only game in town if you decided to be that niche player, as well as complement the rest of your practice. The other point I would say is, when you go into that niche market, if that's what you choose, develop something unique. Develop your IP that meets that pain point. The 3 pain points that industry would need. What are they missing? Are they, for example, in manufacturers, only looking at shop floor and staying disconnected? And healthcare, they're looking at the patient, but are they looking at the back end? What are they doing on a financial basis? How are they really enabling the customer, the end user, the patient, to alleviate that pain from them as well? It's a big pressure. The final thing I would really encourage partners to do is to really think outside the box. And when you do that, it goes back to what they said in the movie Apollo 13. Failure is not an option. And for us to survive today in our ecosystem, as well as within this whole space, and compete against Salesforce, we need to drop the letter CRM, because they'll say Salesforce comes first, and start differentiating right there. Call it our engagement platform. And that will be very powerful right then, because you'll get a meeting. I've experienced that myself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. It's a great presentation. And I know we're back on next week, the same time. Would you like to give just a quick 10-second preview for those joining for next week?
Yes, I'm so excited. We are going to talk about empowering employees to deliver on brand promise, because that's one of the biggest essential gaps within that bridge, is that you're not delivering on brand promise.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking
And they
forward
can be your ambassadors. So it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds very exciting, and it's definitely a great segue from what you were just saying around if you really want to get into your customer experience, know what your customers want, what they value, ask the employees. And so it sounds like a great segue moving into that topic. So thank you so much, and we definitely appreciate your time, especially joining us from, in between your travels. And so definitely safe travels.
Actually, I'd rather be warm where you are. I'm in Minneapolis, so thank you.
I'll stop the recording now.